Hey, this is Hunter. It is the 21st of May. Vance Morris, Customer Experience, Value Creators Podcast.
This is the Value Creators Podcast, your source for a new kind of business education, escaping from business administration mode and entering dynamic entrepreneurship mode. We're guided by entrepreneurial economics, which is the source of all growth and positive change for businesses of all sizes in all markets. We talk to experienced experts in value creation so that there's business learning for you in every episode.
Vance, welcome to the Value Creators Podcast.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Looking forward to this.
Well, thank you, because you're an authority on the most important element of business, which is the customer experience. That's the way we think. It all starts with the customer, and the customer experience is subjective. It's what they decide, what they evaluate. That's the term that we use. You talk about customer experience excellence. Let's start there. Let's start with the customer. What is an excellent experience for the customer?
It is one that's above and beyond just the standard delivery of service. So whatever your service or product is, doing just a good job is entry into the marketplace. It used to be everything. Now it's just, that's bare bones entry into the marketplace. In order to be viewed as no longer being viewed as a commodity, because that's our environment is that now. So a dentist is a dentist is a dentist. How does one dentist differentiate themselves from another? It's the experiences that they provide. And in order to do that, you have to really be ready to invoke some of your personality. You have to be ready to be a little bit different and not be afraid to be different. And you have to be ready to embrace things that your competitors are not ready to embrace or won't embrace. And all of these things combined create the experience. And excellence is really the goal. And it's I don't think it's ever actually reached, because I mean, when Walt Disney was putting, Disney together, he had a term for improvement, process improvement. It's called plussing. So we're going to plus the show. We're going to plus this process. And so the goal always was excellence, but it was never completely reached because we're always getting better. So we're, this week we're going to, okay, how do we answer the telephone? We're going to plus that experience. Or, how do we send out this package? We're going to plus that experience. So never completely getting there, but it was always the goal of plussing and really just improving, never resting on our laurels.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And so we're economists here, and we think in terms of expectations. So it sounds like we've got to not just meet expectations, but exceed them. Is that a right way to interpret what
Certainly. Yeah. And, and again, but it goes back to actually being able to do your job at the beginning, because the last thing you want to do, a lot of people think of experiences as it has to be a wow, it has to be over the top or something exciting. And while that's the case in some instances or some environments, if you don't do a good job, or if your product is satisfactory or barely adequate, creating experiences around it is only going to amplify its adequacy. It's not going to make it any better. So you have to be careful that what your base product is, or your base service is solid and really good to start with. And then adding on top of it, okay, let's exceed the expectations. Because without it, you also have to determine what are the expectations. And that's different for everyone. I mean, everybody's customers have different expectations of, our expectations of a utility company versus our expectations of a steakhouse are vastly different.
And presumably every individual's expectations are different, right? That's
exactly, certainly.
Subjective. Yeah. So just to emphasize, it sounds like customer experience is as important in business to business, any business, as it is in business to consumer. We shouldn't just think of it as a consumer
Well,
experience.
yeah, and it doesn't matter the platform. If you're e-commerce, certainly B2C, D2C, any of the acronyms out there. Yeah, the experience, even B2B, because at the end of the day, you're not doing business with a business. You're doing business with people within that business. And, if you've got two competitors and one salesperson is, just going through the motions, and the other salesperson is, creating experiences out of, you know, delivering examples of the product, or, really showcasing what the product can do or what their services are like. Well, who's going to win out on that?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Disney, and you're a graduate of Disney and one of their experts on customer experience. So, what's that context? How did you've talked about plussing, but maybe you could tell us a little bit more how they thought about it and implemented it.
Yeah. So, when I first got there, I was on the opening team of the Yacht and Beach Club Resort. This was like 1990. So, it was actually during the first Gulf War. And, uh, people ask me, "Oh, what did you learn at Disney?" And they're shocked to hear the answer, because it's not, here's how we treat guests, or, we pick up trash really quickly and make the place really clean. First thing I learned is that Disney runs on systems and processes. So when we were opening the resort, my boss walked me into this training room, and this is before we all had phones in our hands and computers on every desk. And in this training room were just stacks and stacks of binders. They're all 4 inches thick. And I asked, I said, "What is all this?" And he goes, "Well, these are all of the OJTs and SOPs on how Disney opens and operates a resort." And I was
Mhm.
just floored. I mean, you want to carry a tray in a restaurant, there's a standard for that. If you want to park a car as a valet, there's a process for that. And Disney had a process for everything. And I said, "Well, why? Why?" Well, one, for consistency.
Yeah.
So if you go to any Disney property, you're going to get the same consistent service that you get at any other Disney property, which makes sense. But two is, if you know your job inside and out, and it just becomes rote, like you're just doing your job, um, and it's muscle memory, it allows you the time and the freedom to be able to do all of the nice things that Disney is known for. So you can stop and take pictures for a family. You can do the autographs. You can, rescue the small child whose ice cream just fell on the
Mm.
ground and get her a new one. Because you're not constantly thinking about your job, because you've practiced it so many times. You've got the systems that are repeatable and replicatable. It's ingrained in you, and you're just going through those motions. So systems and processes give you freedom to do those great experiences. And as a business owner, freedom from the business. So I own 3 home service businesses here in Maryland. I have a carpet cleaning business, I have a oriental rug washing facility, and a mold remediation company. And I took all of my Disney knowledge about systems and marketing and customer experience, and I packed it into those 3 businesses. And about 6, 7 years ago, I was able to step away from those businesses. I put a general manager in place. I said, "Run the systems. Don't change anything. Don't screw with anything. Just run the systems."
Mhm.
I spend 90 minutes a week on those businesses right now.
Yeah.
Systems have given me freedom to come and go as I please from those businesses.
Yeah. That's a great insight. How does the continuous improvement then take place? Let's stay in the Disney example. So you've got all the three ring binders. I remember those from my days at Procter and Gamble, but they they don't change much. How do you get the continuous improvement into those now established working systems?
Great question. Disney, actually have process improvement teams, and we go through those. We may not go through all of them, but the ones that have either the most guest impact, maybe the most financial impact, we'll go through and we'll look at the standard. We'll say, how do we make this better?
Mhm.
Great example. If you've been to the Magic Kingdom at Disney, they have the big steamships, the paddle wheel boats that take you over from the parking lot over to Magic Kingdom. And up until a few years ago, when they were loading the boats, everybody loaded on the ground level. And you had to walk, if you wanted to go to the second floor of the boat, you had to walk up the steps on the boat, and that's how you got there. And people want an employee, hourly employee, was like, well, this takes a lot of time. What if we loaded both the top and the bottom at the same time? People are like, oh my God, that makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
So Disney built a secondary ramp. And so now they can load the boat both bottom and top at the same time, saves them X number of minutes, and then they get, 5 more boat trips a day. So it's impacted, guest experience because now they can haul more guests, get them there faster. People aren't waiting around. People are getting into the Disney's happy because people are getting into the park and they're spending money quicker than they were. Um, but it all comes from a process improvement team and people just sitting around and saying, how do we make this better?
Mhm. And how do they actively gather feedback from that frontline employee that you just described to input that to the process improvement job?
Well, they're literally when I was there, we did them quarterly. So on in our individual locations. So I was a food and beverage manager at the Contemporary Resort. So we would once a quarter, and it flowed down into each department. So like the restaurant that I was responsible for, Chef Mickey's, once a quarter, we would go through our operations and say, okay, what can we do? But we had a mission. So let me take 2 steps back.
Yeah.
Um, every area at Disney has a mission, and the mission is bigger than the job. So our mission at Chef Mickey's, this is a character dining destination. So it's where you sit down and the characters come to you while you're eating instead
Mhm.
of you standing in line to go see the character. So our mission was we had to get Mickey through 400 seats in 43 minutes and have it be a great time. That was our mission. And so, we're always looking at, how the mouse was moving through the tables. So we would ask the bus boys or we would ask the entertainment folks who were minding the characters, you know, should we rearrange some tables? Would it make it easier for Mickey to get through? We asked the bus boys, hey, how could we get you to contribute to this 43 minutes that we need to get the mouse through. And they actually had one of the biggest contributions was like, look, when we clean a table, we've got a salt and pepper shaker, we got the sugar boat, we got the creamer, and then we got this thing that's got the little table tent that's got some, information on it. It takes us some time to get all that stuff off the table, clean the table, and then put it back. So if we had like a basket or something, that all we had to do was pick the basket up and wipe and then put it back, it would save us a lot of time. Great. We made them a basket.
Yeah.
Now every table's got a basket. This came from an hourly employee's idea. We shaved, I don't know, 30, 40 seconds off of that table, multiply it by the 100 tables that are in there, multiply that times the number of times that table turns. We save minutes upon minutes upon minutes. And that's just from one quarterly meeting, sitting down with the team and saying, how do we make this better? How do we get towards our goal of 400 seats, 43 minutes, and have it be a great time?
Yeah. That's a great example. Thank you. So I want to go back to the beginning, and people talk about designing great customer experiences. Is that the right time, the right term? Can you design them from scratch? We just to tell you the way we think backwards, that you start from the existing experience and then figure out how to improve it like you just described. But can you start from the beginning and say, I'm going to design a customer experience?
Sure thing. Yeah, I mean, well, certainly. I mean, if you're a brand new company, yeah,
Mhm.
definitely, you can design it. Um, you can design if you're starting a new product or new service. Certainly, you can design that. I'll give you a quick example. So I've written a couple of books. And you can get the book on Amazon. And when Amazon ships it, it comes in a brown box or a brown bag.
Mhm.
Not much of an experience there. But if you go to my website and order the book, I'm going to send it to you. I've got a custom box. Okay. It comes in a nice custom box. You open it up and it's an experience inside of a box. And so you get the book. And you also get, because it's a book, I said, well, it should probably have a bookmark in there. So we put a bookmark in there. It's also a little bit of a workbook. So now there's a pen. And oh, by the way, you bought something. So I should probably put a thank you letter in there. So now there's a nice thank you letter in there. And I'm like, oh, well, they've gone through the trouble of, buying this and I've got all this other stuff. I'm going to put a little sales letter in there to say maybe they would be interested in my newsletter or maybe one of my coaching programs. So I have created the experience of purchasing one of my books. It's now Vance, myself. It's Vance in a box
Mhm.
is essentially what we've done. You can get it on Amazon, no experience. You know what you're going to get. You're going to get it in 24 hours, maybe even less. And that's an experience in and of itself. How they do that, I don't know. Or if you buy it from me, it's going to be an experience within the box. It's an unboxing experience. So it's obviously different from Amazon, but I designed it that way.
Yeah. So to continue our metaphor, then the base experience or expectation rather is Amazon, right? It'll come in a box, and then you plus it with all of the things that you talked about. So
Yep.
that's an example of
100%.
awesome. Yeah, yeah, it's a good story. Um, so what happens when that's not ideal? You don't, the customer doesn't like the box, or the pen doesn't work, or something like that. How do you do those feedback loops? Are you constantly monitoring, or do we know?
Sometimes we know. I mean, if it was like if this was like a large purchase, so one of my clients um sells organic meat through the mail. She's a farmer down in Georgia, and she was including recipes to go along with the meat. And I mean, they're wonderful. The meat's wonderful. The recipes were fantastic. But the way they were packaged together when the box arrived at the home, because of the condensation of the packaging, all the recipes were ruined. So that was now the experience is ruined. So, and we got that feedback and we said, okay, well, how do we fix this? Well, I mean, for us, it was an easy fix. We just put the recipes in a little envelope and we tape it to the outside of the box. So it's not the experience of opening the box and, oh, look, great recipes and here's the meat, but we were able to solve the problem. So yeah, definitely you do need to, don't be a stick in the mud and say, well, this is my idea. This is the experience I want, damn the customers. It's not going to work.
Yeah, so the feedback there is in terms of complaints or
Sure.
dissatisfaction, we like to call it. But what if you don't find that out? They just don't reorder, or they go somewhere else, or how can you get the feedback loop?
Yeah. Well, in my world, we have what's called, I have an alarm system that if people don't either, you know, don't buy again, or they disappear. I have mechanisms where we will reach out to them and say, whether it be email, text, or good old fashioned phone call, say, hey, you used to, get our newsletter. We haven't seen you in a couple of months. Is everything okay? So all businesses need to have this alarm system that somebody is getting ready to, or somebody has departed your business. I mean, let's take like a gym or something, and an alarm system for them would be, let's say the member used to get personal training all the time and they were in the gym 6 days a week, and took advantage of all the other services. And then all of a sudden, they stopped doing personal training and they came in the gym once every 2 weeks. Well, your CRM or your system that you use to track things should be saying, hey, this guy has changed their behavior. You need to go find out what's wrong because it looks like they're getting ready to quit. And so you make the point of going and find, hey, is everything okay? Oh no, I just, I haven't been really feeling well. I had the flu, and I'll be back at my normal self. Or, well, the sauna hasn't worked in a week, and Mary at the front desk has been grouchy the whole time, and yeah, I've been looking at other gyms because you guys haven't been really nice.
Yeah.
Oh crap. Um, so yeah, you need to have those kinds of systems built in to let you know that someone's about to leave, or worse, someone has left, and now you have to go through an entire customer reactivation sequence to get them to come back.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big idea, actually, an alarm system. I haven't heard that term before, but it's a good one. We're delighted to announce the Value Creators online course. For entrepreneurs in every kind of business, big, small, or medium, at every stage, in every industry, our course provides the foundations and principles on which to build success. Simple, clear purpose and principles give rise to creativity, innovation, and competitively superior business action. There are 11 foundational principles or mental models that together cohere into the value business model. Principles for value generation, principles for value operations, principles for value finance and accounting, and principles for value sustainability, as well as the new knowledge accumulation you'll need for continuous innovation. These principles are delivered by top business professors from top business schools: Mark Packard, Per Byland, Gordon Miller, David Rapp, and Bart Vanderhagen. You'll find video lessons from them, along with downloadable tools, processes, and other valuable content. Master these lessons, and you'll master the most important skill in business: value creation. Go to thevaluecreators.com and click the course link. So, what if we design the system, Vance, and it can't be implemented, or the front line hasn't been trained well enough, or the system doesn't work? Or how do you ensure that the design is implementable?
Um, well, other than brute force, and the beatings will continue until, um, when I work with companies, as a consultant, I insist that the frontline employees are part of the process, because this is what we did at Disney. I mean,
Mhm.
the busboy example being one of them. And because they do the job day in and day out, they know what is happening with the guests or the customers. They know what's working, and 9 times out of 10, they're gonna have the best ideas on improvement. So, I include them all the time during the meeting. Now, management or the owner, they'll set the guardrails, the guidelines, like, we're gonna work within these parameters, but within these parameters, we've got some leeway to make some improvements. So, if you want engaged employees, you've got to include them. And Disney tried this a number of times. They wanted that ownership mentality.
Mhm.
And, in a company that's got a couple 100,000 employees, and a bazillion shareholders, we were never going to have an ownership mentality. I mean, we knew what they were trying to do, but it just wasn't going to work. Um, but when they went along the lines of engagement, okay, well, now you're listening to me, you're actively, um, implementing our ideas. Now, oh, this is a much nicer place to work because they're actually listening to me.
Mhm.
Um, so you you can't just write a policy, hand it to Marge at the front desk, and say, "Do it," because it's just not going to happen. Um, there has to be training, and I alluded to it earlier. Your systems have to be repeatable, replicatable, and most importantly, they have to be practiced. So you can't just hand off a SOP and say, "Here." Um, so when we're in the session, we'll say, let's say it's answering the telephone, and we'll go around the room and we'll say, okay, right now, answering the telephone seems to be an issue. How do we improve that? And, people will say, well, we could probably answer, instead of 5 rings, let's answer it in 3 rings. Okay, great. There's an improvement. Great. So we'll, on our sheet of paper, we have what we're currently doing and what we're going to be doing in the future, what our plus is. So
Mhm.
we cross off 5 rings, and now we have 3 rings. And then in a future meeting, we'll nail that down to 2 rings, and then finally 1 ring. But that's the future. And then we'll say, okay, well, how do we answer the telephone? So I worked with a insurance company, and uh, they were like one of, I don't know, 50 insurance companies in this city, and they were having a hard time standing out. Insurance is a highly commoditized business, and but the insurance agent was a huge rock and roll fanatic. He
Hmm.
had gold records on the wall, autographed guitars, posters, and everything. And one of the employees came up with the idea. Most people would be like, thank you for calling Dave's Insurance. How can I help you?
Mhm.
We've all heard something like that. Um, but she came up with the idea of, why don't we answer the phone like, thank you for calling Dave's Allstate, the agency that rocks.
Mhm.
Now, the boss didn't come up with that. One of the employees came up with that, took a piece of his personality, what he's all about, and created the greeting for the telephone. Now, some will say that's a little corny.
Mhm.
Fine, that's okay. But remember, your marketing is designed to do two things. It's designed to attract the people you want to do business with and repel the people you don't want. And just by answering the phone that way, they are now sifting, sorting, and screening out people that would not be a good customer. And they're standing out. Everybody knows who the rock and roll insurance agent in town is. There's nobody else, and nobody can copy them. So that's the engagement that we get from the employees. And we also say, well, you know what? That was your idea. So now we're doing it.
Yeah. So that's one of the biggest topics in management science today is this issue of engagement. So I've heard you say three things, and one of them I think is very distinctive. So one is inclusion. They got to feel like they're included, right, in the process and the thinking and the planning. The second one you said is listening, which is definition of inclusion, but enabling them to put their personality into that service, like the gal on the phone, that the agency that rocks. That sounds additive to me. Is that tell
Yeah.
me about that? Letting people put their personality into the service.
Yeah, it's, because we all have one, regardless of, what it is, we all
Mhm.
have one. And I'm not saying that, if you're, a grumpy introvert, never, don't like to talk to people, should you be on the phone? Probably not. Um, but, allowing, and that's where scripting comes into play. And that's, again, where Disney allows that 20% of personality to shine through is, because we had people, I had employees there that had been working in that same restaurant for 30 years. And I had families that were coming back year after year that would only sit in that server's station. They
Mhm.
would wait hours. Now, did that server serve the food any better than any of the other servers in there? No, but probably not.
Mhm.
But it was their personality, it was how they talked to them, how they took care of them, the fact that they remembered the kids. "Oh my god, Johnny, it's great to see you again." Um, and just the little things like that, and personality is really difficult to to to
Mhm.
describe, but it's just allowing them to, if they're used to saying "y'all," like, "Y'all come back," go ahead and let them say it. I mean, that's part of what they are. Don't try and force something else out of them that's not congruent with who they are. Or if you want somebody to say something different and it's not right for them, well, maybe you shouldn't have hired them to begin with because that's not the right person to be doing what you asked.
Yeah. So now we've got chatbots, Vance, and
Ah, ah, ah.
we have certain expectations for them. Mine are pretty low, and they always seem to be realized. But how are you dealing with service issues in the age of chatbots?
My firm belief is that any company that is answering the phone live with a real person has a true competitive advantage
Hmm.
over their competitors. Now, that's not saying that you should have just anybody answering the phone because we've all called that the 1-800 number for service on something, and we've
Mhm.
gotten a country where it's very difficult to understand through the accent. I get that. Um, and chatbots can be, in some industries, fine. Like if you call your plumber and you need to get the plumber out ASAP, and the chatbot says, "When would you like us to come out? The earliest appointment is Tuesday at 9 a.m. Press one for yes." Great. One, great. They're coming. Boom, done. Um, I also firmly believe, though, even with the plumber, the first option should be press one to speak to a person. It should not be option number 9 or 19. One should be the first option. Let me speak to a human. Those are the businesses that are going to have the competitive advantage over everybody else. I just firmly believe that it's gonna come full circle. Right now, everything's swinging the pendulum towards AI and chatbots and all this stuff, and the AI will get better. There's no doubt about that. Um, but it's never going to have the warmth and the compassion, especially depending on what industry you're in. If you need compassion, I don't know of any machine that's going to have that anytime soon.
Yeah, a
Uh,
personality, to use your term, right?
or personality.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm not that I'm anti AI. I think in the customer service realm, unless it is used to support and advance and speed up a service issue, it a human's got to do it.
Yeah. Good. That's a clear point of view. I appreciate it.
Yep.
So, you're a consultant now in customer service for various clients. You must get called into situations where there's a experience problem that needs fixing. One of the things they used to teach us back in the day, and I've always doubted whether it's true, is that customers will forgive you for one mistake, but not for two or three. That accumulates. In this day and age, I'm not sure I believe that. So, what's your thinking about that? Let's say you make a customer service error, you miss the mark, you don't meet expectations. How do you fix that?
Well, if it's a first time customer, it's extremely difficult. So if it's a first time purchase of your product, first time person using your service, it's more difficult than somebody who has been with you for years or has been using your product, numerous times. Um, so let's take the person who's been with you for years because it's a little bit easier. So I am a firm believer that especially small businesses need to be creating emotional connections with their customers. We are not Goodyear, we are not, Disney or Apple or Walmart. Um, we are the local business. We need to create an emotional connection. How you do that is different for everybody. For me, in my local home service businesses, what I do, I shamelessly use my children in my marketing. So, for example, for a long time, my daughter, she did ballet. And I would, at every recital, I'd take a picture of her in her tutu and I would put her picture in my newsletter. So I sent a print newsletter every month to all of my cleaning clients. And I did this for a number of years until she got too old to do ballet. Um, and she was about 10 or 11 years old, we're in the grocery store and this woman comes running up to us. Actually, came running up to my daughter. She didn't even want to talk to me. She goes, "Oh my God, Emma, how was your recital?" And my daughter and I looked at each other. We're like, who the hell is this lady that we're going to go hide in the frozen food aisle? And then I had to think, she's got to be a customer.
Yeah, yeah.
This woman has watched my child grow up through the years. My kids have thousands of aunts and uncles that they'll never meet that have watched my kids grow up. I have created an emotional connection with this woman. She's never leaving me until she dies or moves away.
Hmm.
Now, yes, can I make a mistake or two or three with her and she'll forgive me? Probably yes. I know I'm going to have to do a couple of things to make it up, but I have a lot better chance of retaining that customer because I've created that connection than if I had never created it at all. If I had just been a transactional kind of company, like, okay, yeah, we clean for you and we'll see you in 12 months and you never hear from me again until we clean, I don't have a fighting chance to retain that customer.
Yeah. So
So
that,
it's vital that you have stuff happening in between purchases of your product or uses of your service. You've got to have contact and not sales contact, because if the only time you ever hear from a business is when they want money, I
mhm,
mean, that's not a relationship, that's a transaction. So, like for me, as I mentioned, I do print newsletters. That is an emotional connection piece. There's nothing salesy in there. Sure, I send things out. I've got, emails and postcards and things that I'll send that have promotions on them. But that newsletter is designed 100% for putting a fence around my customers, keeping them in and keeping my competitors out. Um, with the first time buyer, it's harder. It's not impossible, but it's harder. Um, and you have to think you have to think in totality of what the problem cost to the customer. So like if you get your car fixed and you pay $500 and you had to take the day off, and so there's a cost to that, and then you had to find a ride, somebody to pick you up, there's a cost to that, or you had to rent a car, and then you pick your car up and you drive, and 2 miles down the road it breaks down again, and so you bring it back to the mechanic, and the mechanic says, okay, well, I won't charge you for this repair. Well, I will certainly hope not. Um, but what about all of the other costs that I incurred for the repair, the rental car, the time away from
mhm,
work, etc.? Is just fixing it for free really taking care of the customer? Or should you think in totality and say, oh my God, I can't believe the car broke down? Sure, of course, we'll take care of repairing it. And oh, by the way, I've got two loaners in the back. Let me put you in one of our loaner cars so that you don't have that expense. And I know you took some time off. We've got a special deal with the pizza place right across town. Why don't you go ahead and pick up a couple of pizzas and bring them home to the family for dinner? Now
yeah.
that is a resolution in a little bit more totality, and you have a fighting chance of retaining the customer and having them come back than if you had just done a free repair.
Yeah, we think of that as a calculus in our calculation. It's B is greater than C. The benefits are greater than the costs, and you've got to make that calculation. But as you point out, you got to understand everything that's in the cost from the customer's standpoint, which
Yes,
is
100%.
which is hard. So I love the story about the lady coming up to your daughter in the supermarket. And the way I think about that is there's that emotional connection was out there. It was out there in the ether. It was a great thing for you. You didn't know about it until it got realized in the supermarket aisle. But what about all of the disconnection, the dissatisfaction that it's not quite right. It's out there as well. Before the alarm goes off, maybe how can you draw that in? How can you get a sense for that? The balance between the people who are emotionally connected and the ones who aren't quite.
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as a measurement, you know, I think we're doing a pretty good job. Our repeat rate is almost double the industry. So, on average, in the carpet cleaning world, 35% um, of people will clean again with that same company.
Mhm.
In with my company, it's 71%. So
Oh,
clearly, we're
congratulations!
doing something right.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Now, can you please everybody all the time? No, you can't. Are we also the service for everyone? No. I mean, our market is we target the affluent market. So sometimes we get, you know, a house that we probably shouldn't be in to begin with, um, and and things don't go well. Now, we also offer a guarantee, which I believe every business, doesn't matter what you are, should be able to offer some kind of guarantee for their services. Doesn't always have to be money back, but some kind of guarantee, and which we do. So we have it's the most thorough cleaning ever, or your money back.
Mhm.
Um, I've had that. One, it's a powerful marketing statement, two, it takes a lot of pressure off of the customer for the first time using us because what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I can count on one hand in the last 17 years how many people have called me up on that. It's four. Four people have called me on our guarantee. And two, unfortunately, it was an animal that had done bad things to the
Yeah.
carpet that nothing was going to save that carpet. So,
Yeah.
but so if you have your metrics, if you know your metrics, you can really extrapolate out how you're doing. In addition, we do handwritten thank you cards. Every one of my customers gets one. Within that card also is a comment card. And it's got, and we also have the ratings 1 through 5. And every one of those and it's pre-stamped. Please, if you're doing comment cards, don't forget to put the postage. Don't expect the customer to put the postage on there. And we get those back. And, anything that's under a 5, we call. Even if they rated us a 4, we want to know, all right, well, what did we do wrong? Why didn't you give us a 5? So you've got to measure. I mean, what's the saying? Whatever is measured can be improved.
Yeah. But you allocate resources to that, to following up on the 4-star rating.
But it pays off.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask you that about Amazon. So every time I order something on Amazon, the order's confirmed. You get the chance to award up to 5 stars, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But you're saying that's got real value. That's a real metric that we should follow.
It does, and not only does it have value for externally for marketing purposes and social proof for your business, it's internal validation for your employees. So we have a wall of fame. I mean, all these things go up. We know exactly who did all these things. Now, we don't put the bad ones up. We'll take the employee aside and say, hey, Charlie, you didn't do such a hot job here. But the good ones, we just line the walls with these things. And, we have customers that come and they'll drop off their Oriental rugs for us to clean, and they'll look at the wall. And we got hundreds of them. And they're just looking up at these things. They're like, holy cow.
Yeah, that's a nice system. Let me just go negative for a second. Tell me about, without giving any names away, a particularly difficult or intractable experience that you had in your consulting, where you had to fix something that was broken. How can you tell us
Yeah.
about that?
Well, one particularly difficult client. It was unfortunately it was a father-son deal, and the son was very forward-thinking. Dad was just he would do it his way, or we're not doing it. And it was very much we had to show that whatever it was we were going to do had value. Depression era values from dad. So nothing wrong with dad. It's just that those were his values, and he just didn't think that, or he thought everybody should have the values that he has, which obviously times change. So we had to work carefully around him, and we did have a problem with phones not being answered because he wouldn't upgrade the phone system.
Mm-hmm.
So, where we could have, where we should have only had like 2 people answering the phones if we had a good up to date, like 2000 year, year 2000 telephone system versus the 1970s telephone system. The 70s telephone system required 5 people to answer the phones because that's how antiquated it was. But he also wanted the labor cost to be cut down. So, well, you want technology and 2 people, or your system that you're insisting on and 5 people. So we had to balance that. And then, he's very stuck on pricing and value. And I was like, well, how do we, I don't want to raise prices. He says, well, if you're not at least raising prices as much as inflation, you're already behind. So you should be
Mhm.
at least doing 3% or whatever inflation is now. Um, but if you want to be able to provide more and better experiences, well, people are going to have to pay for those. And it becomes this kind of what I call a flywheel. And so I said, look, give us one area that we can do something and show you that we can create an experience that is going to create the profit, that is going to not intrude on your values.
Mhm.
And I said, okay. So this was a hotel uh, combined with a family entertainment center. Um, and so so we took one of the hotel rooms, and one of the big things they like to do is grandparents love to have birthday parties there and bring all of the kids and the family, and they would rent out like 2 or 3 hotel rooms. We said, well, why don't we turn one of these hotel rooms into a team locker room style hotel room? They would pay a premium for it, but they would also get catering and things like that. So we took out all of the beds and rearranged everything, and so we installed lockers. We installed bunk beds. We put in foosball tables, and we installed a little mini kitchen. The catering department would, endless supply of soda and cotton candy and popcorn. They got special passes to get on all of the rides. The 3 rooms that we took out, just say for sake of argument, would have generated $1,000 in revenue. When we turned it into the one room, which ended up being the birthday party room with the locker room theme, was north of $5,500. It was 5x the value of, because it had a theme to it. It was no longer just white walls and, a nice bedspread. It was a themed room, and it sold out every weekend, sold
Mhm.
out for months on end. And he was like, okay, whatever you want to do, go ahead, let's get
Yeah.
started.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, once we got once I discovered his values and we were able to take one project and align it with his values so that it wasn't going to damage him, and it was shown that it was going to be an added value to the resort and also a financial success. It was easier to go through.
Yeah. That's a great story. So I'm not sure whether this is a fair question, but maybe we can end on the idea of key principles. Vance, you've given us a lot. I've taken away service systems create experiences. So that's pretty solid principle. But anything else you can leave us when we're trying to think about priorities to approach this issue?
Well, for small business owners and entrepreneurs, I think everybody has that shiny object syndrome, or squirrel. The whole, they can't focus. And you're right. We've talked about a lot today, and you probably listen to other podcasts and get information. My advice, my mantra, whatever you want to call it, is implementation. Take one idea that you heard from us today, from a book you read, take one idea and implement it and get the traction, get the results, and see how that momentum starts. Then take the next idea, implement that, and then you'll see, once you start implementing one idea after another, there's momentum in that. Otherwise, it's just been, a nice 46 minutes, Hunter, you and I chatting. We've gotten them through their commute home, or
Mhm.
45 minutes on the treadmill. And, it's been nice talking. Pick one thing,
Yeah.
and I have a saying, it's, you won't profit unless you implement. All of my clients, all of my coaching members know this. It's tattooed on their foreheads, but nothing will happen unless you do something.
Yeah. Great. Well, we'll link to your books, Vance. So, shall we do it on both Amazon and your website, or just your website?
Um, well, if they want the experience, website, and because also the book is free there, But if you really want to
Okay.
send Zuckerberg $20, go ahead and get it on Amazon.
Yeah. Okay. Now we'll just do your website. Any other links that you'd like us to post for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you want, I have a great new resource I just put together a couple of months ago, and it's 52 ways to wow your customers without breaking the bank. So it's one wow a week, and these are all low or no cost ways to really engage and wow your customers. And you can find that at wow52ways.com. And yeah. So if you're ever struggling and you don't feel creative, just open that thing up and say, "Oh, look, here's one,"
Yeah.
and go ahead and do it.
Implement one thing. Got it.
That's right.
Well, Vance, thank you very much. We've learned an awful lot today. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your advice. And as we said, customer experience is everything. So this is the most important advice you could possibly get.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of the Value Creators Podcast. Thanks for listening. You can visit thevaluecreators.com for links and resources related to this episode. Check hunterhastings.com for more content on entrepreneurial business management based on value creation principles.